welcome to the Classic Soap Operas podcast. Hello and welcome.
Hey there.
Get ready to dive headfirst into a world of sun-drenched California estates, intensely dramatic family feuds, and plot twists that, frankly, sometimes defy belief.
Oh, absolutely. For nearly a decade, this show kept viewers absolutely glued to their screens.
That's right. Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into the wild, wonderful, and yes, sometimes utterly bizarre history of the iconic soap opera Santa Barbara.
It really wasn't just any daytime drama, was it? It carved out a truly unique space in the genre. Its tone and storytelling were just different.
We've got a stack of fascinating notes and articles here, snippets from episode guides, character lists, production histories that lay out this really intricate web of relationships, the shocking secrets, and the unforgettable, often outrageous moments that define this show.
Yeah, it ran from 1984 to 1993, quite a stretch. Think of this deep dive as your personal sort of accelerated path to becoming instantly well-informed on Santa Barbara. Whether you are a loyal follower who never missed an episode, or maybe you're just curious about this unique piece of television history, we're here to guide you.
Through the labyrinthine lives of the Capwells, the Lockridges, and everyone else caught in their, tumultuous orbit.
Exactly. We're going to unpack this incredible source material, pull out the most important nuggets, and really try to get to grips with what made Santa Barbara tick.
Get ready for some intense drama. Definitely moments that will make you laugh out loud at their sheer audacity. And yes.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
There might even be a discussion involving a giant neon letter.
You have to mention the letter. Okay, let's set the scene for you. At its absolute core, Santa Barbara is built around the dramatic, often scandalous lives of the incredibly wealthy Capwell family.
They're the anchor, right?
They are the anchor, yeah. The central figures whose sprawling mansion and powerful corporations sit right at the heart of this picturesque California coastal town.
But, and this is crucial, while the Capwells were definitely front and center for most of the show's run, it didn't start just about them, did it?
No.
Yeah.
The initial premise heavily featured their bitter rivals, the Lockridge family, another wealthy clan with this, long-standing feud with the Capwells.
Okay.
And in the very early months, the show also introduced and gave significant airtime to the more modest Andrade and Perkins families. They were trying to give a broader feel, I think, of the town's social fabric.
But that shifted.
What becomes quickly apparent as you look through the show's history is how rapidly that initial focus shifted and tightened. Yeah.
Right.
While characters like Rosa Andrade, the incredibly loyal Capwell housekeeper, and her daughter Santana Andrade remained important.
Mostly because of their connections to the Capwells.
Exactly. Deep connections and conflicts. But the significance of the wider Andrade and Perkins families, it waned significantly after the first few months. The show really consolidated its focus primarily onto the Capwells and Lockridges. Supporting characters were often defined by their ties to those two dynasties.
Got it. So right from the absolute jump, the very first episode, the creators introduced a central mystery. And this wasn't just a plot point. It became the very foundation, didn't it? The backbone for so many subsequent stories.
Yeah, the murder of Channing Capwell Jr. He was the eldest son of the patriarch, C.C. Capwell.
And here's the twist. This murder didn't just happen in the first episode. It had occurred 5 years before the series even began.
That's right. The show opens with the release of Joe Perkins, a man wrongly convicted of the crime, which just reignites the whole mystery. Who really did it?
And that unsolved death, it just hung over the entire series.
It wasn't just background noise, it was the core. Countless other plots revolved around it. It directly affected almost every major character in some way.
Like how?
Well, there was the revelation of Channing Jr.'s illegitimate son, Brandon, his parentage, the custody battles. That was a huge storyline.
Okay.
Then there was the mystery surrounding Channing Jr.'s mother, Sophia Wayne. She was presumed dead.
Presumed dead. Classic soap.
Totally. But her past was intrinsically linked to his death, too. Pretty much everyone in Santa Barbara, from the Capwells themselves to their rivals and, various associates, was at some point tangled up in that initial mystery or suspected of being involved.
It was the original sin that the town just couldn't escape.
Well put. Exactly.
Let's talk about the man himself, the patriarch. The often infuriating complex C.C. Capwell.
Ah, C.C. He was played by several actors over the show's run, which was, like you said, common for this show.
Yeah.
But Jed Allen is undoubtedly the face most fans remember. He played him for the longest duration, from '86 until the end.
And he was the president of Capwell Enterprises. The family business.
Right. The financial engine of the family's power and the absolute head of this sprawling, incredibly complicated, and frequently dysfunctional family.
Cece's personal life was a true soap opera in itself.
Oh my goodness, yes. His romantic history was just a whirlwind. Marriages, affairs, rediscovered loves.
He was married multiple times.
Multiple. First to Pamela Pepperidge, then to Sophia Wayne, later to Gina DeMott. Then back to Sophia, then briefly to Gina again, then back to Sophia. I mean, you get the picture. It was complicated.
Definitely. And the kids.
Initially, his known children included Mason from Pamela, his first wife, and then Channing III, Eden, Ted, and Kelly from Sophia.
But there were more. Secrets always come out.
Always. As the show went on, more secret children emerged. There was Elena, a secret daughter with Pamela, introduced years into the series.
Oh.
And Greg Hughes, a son he had with a former lover named Megan Richardson.
His relationship with his eldest son, Mason, was consistently strained, wasn't it? That seems like a key dynamic.
Arguably one of the most compelling dynamics on the show.
Yeah.
There was this perpetual tension, this simmering resentment.
Why? What was the source?
Well, the thinking is it possibly stemmed from Cece never fully forgiving Mason's mother, Pamela, for leaving him years before. It created this constant source of conflict between father and son. Mason often acted out or opposed Cece almost on principle, it felt like.
Interesting. And speaking of complications involving children, you mentioned Gina DeMott.
Right. When Gina arrived early in the series, she brought with her a young boy named Brandon, claiming he was her son.
But he wasn't?
Nope. Santana Andrade, who was Channing Jr.'s former lover, quickly realized Brandon was her biological son with Channing Jr.
Ah, okay. Cue the drama.
Huge dramatic custody battle. And in a move that perplexed many, Cece initially sided with Gina in the fight for Brandon. He even married her.
He married Gina while she was fighting Santana for custody of his grandchild.
Yep. It only added layers of complication and betrayal to the mix. It really highlights that Cece's judgment, well, it wasn't always the best, especially when influenced by powerful women or maybe his own pride.
But the sources consistently point to Sophia Wayne as the true love of Cece's life, right?
Yeah.
Despite all the others.
Definitely. Her return to Santa Barbara after being presumed dead for years.
Presumed dead again, love it.
It was a monumental turning point in the show. Their relationship was the emotional core for Cece. They married 3 separate times.
3 times.
3 times. And they finally reconciled in the show's very last episode in 1993, bringing their decades-long tumultuous love story full circle.
That's actually quite sweet in a very soap opera way.
It is. But you also have to mention the absurdity. Like, the time the Lockridge matriarch, Minx Lockridge,
Minx!
shot Cece with buckshot after he tried to take her mansion.
Yeah, she shot him with buckshot.
Yeah. It's a moment that sounds completely ridiculous on paper, but somehow it fit perfectly within the world of Santa Barbara.
That's the kind of thing that cemented the show's reputation, I guess, for going there no matter how unbelievable.
Totally. It encapsulates the show's unique blend of high drama and unexpected absurdity.
Ah, yes. Minx Lockridge. Now, she was a character, played by the legendary stage actress Judith Anderson initially, right?
That's right. And later by the wonderful Giannis Page. Minx was the formidable matriarch of the rival family. Incredibly strong personality, sharp wit, and this mysterious past the show hinted at.
She was the widow of T. McDonald Lockridge.
Yes, and the absolute foil to Cece.
Her relationship with her son Lionel, and especially with her daughter-in-law, Augusta Wainwright Lockridge, that provided some dark humor.
Often, yeah. Minx was frequently amused and sometimes exasperated by Augusta's silliness, as the source describes it. Augusta had this sort of over-the-top dramatic persona that critics actually praised.
Minx had this deep-seated, long-standing hatred for anything and everything Capwell. It was generational.
Oh, yeah. She initially despised her granddaughter Lakin's relationship with Ted Capwell, simply because he was a Capwell.
Did she ever come around?
Actually, yes. In a testament to the show's character development, she eventually came around and even grew to genuinely like Ted as a person. Proved even the most hardened matriarch could soften slightly.
And she was an activist, too, early on.
In the early days, yeah. She was depicted as an environmental activist, leading protests against Cece's offshore oil drilling operations. Adds another layer to her character.
What about Augusta? You said critics liked her potential.
Augusta herself is a fascinating character study in what might have been. Critics at the time really praised her potential as an Alexis Carrington-style villainess, from Dynasty.
Okay. Big shoes to fill.
Right. She had the presence, the attitude, the dramatic fashion. But then, Her storyline was suddenly and inexplicably dropped.
Really? Why?
It's not entirely clear from the sources, just that it happened, confusing for viewers and critics alike. She did return later on a recurring basis and eventually signed a contract again when the Lockridges were written back into the main storyline towards the end. Fans were delighted.
So you see, right from the start, you had these two incredibly powerful, incredibly wealthy families, constantly at odds, their lives completely tangled up in secrets, rivalries, and that lingering foundational question.
Who really killed Channing Capwell Jr.?
Exactly. It was the absolute perfect storm for high drama, setting the stage for years of conflict and storytelling.
It truly was. That central mystery, coupled with the deep-seated dynamics and rivalries between the Capwells and the Lockridges, provided the essential foundation upon which the entire series was built. It created an environment where literally anything could happen.
And often did.
And often did.
Okay, with the stage set, let's dive into some of the absolutely central characters and the wild, frequently unbelievable roller coaster lives they led. If you came to Santa Barbara looking for dramatic couplings and intense personal struggles,
the show definitely delivered. The central super couple for many viewers, the pairing that became the heart of the show's romance for several years, was undoubtedly Cruz Castillo and Eden Capwell.
Cruz and Eden, iconic.
Their love story was epic, spanning continents, filled with seemingly insurmountable obstacles and wildly dramatic adventures.
Their journey took them to some truly unexpected places. I read about Utah, Eden being held hostage.
Yes. By a character named Kane Garver. It was after her vengeful half-sister, Elena Nicholas, left her for dead during a previous encounter. Just layers upon layers of drama.
And then Paris, searching for their daughter.
Yeah, years later, their desperate search for their missing daughter Adriana led them all the way to Paris. And that resonated so much internationally, especially in France, where the show is huge, that they actually filmed scenes on location there.
Wow, that's commitment.
And you simply cannot talk about Eden Capwell's story without addressing the incredibly controversial storyline where she was brutally raped.
Right. That was a very dark turn.
It was a dark and difficult plot point. And the shocking reveal, which added this layer of violation and betrayal, was that her attacker was her seemingly trustworthy gynecologist, Dr. Zach Kelton.
Her doctor.
Yeah. He'd actually examined her after the initial attack, giving him access and knowledge that he then horribly exploited.
That storyline must have been difficult for viewers and the cast.
Understandably. Sources note that Lee McCloskey, the actor who played Dr. Kelton, was uncomfortable with the plot point. He felt it added unnecessary fear for women regarding medical visits. It was a stark example of the show tackling very dark themes, sometimes pushing boundaries in ways that generated discussion and, well, discomfort.
Their relationship, Cruz and Eden's, despite their deep love, also faced dramatic separations, right?
Really?
Elena Nicholas caused trouble.
Huge trouble. Elena, Cece's secret daughter and Eden's half-sister, arrived seeking revenge on the family. She relentlessly tried to drive a wedge between Cruz and Eden.
And didn't she frame Cruz for murder?
She framed Cruz for her own murder, which she committed herself as part of her vengeful scheme.
Wow, that's elaborate.
Oh yeah, that plotline put Cruz in prison and tore the super couple apart for a significant time.
Okay, let's shift to Mason Capwell. Cece's complex, often troubled, eldest son.
Mason, a truly pivotal figure throughout much of the show's run. Known for his witty cynicism, but also these deep emotional wounds. His life was just a saga of failed relationships, personal demons.
And surprising moments of vulnerability.
Definitely. He had a truly lengthy list of romantic entanglements throughout the series. Santana Andrade, Veronica Gailey, Gina DeMott, Julia Wainwright, Cassandra Benedict, Sasha Schmidt.
Quite the list.
But the one that seemed to define him most, the deep love that had a lasting impact on his character, was for Mary Duval.
Ah, Mary. Their story was incredibly poignant and ultimately profoundly tragic, wasn't it?
Incredibly. She married Mark McCormick despite secretly loving Mason, and Mark turned out to be cruel and abusive.
So she finally confessed her love for Mason.
Yeah, she found the strength, and they were finally on the brink of building a life together. They were looking forward to the birth of their child.
Which brings us to, well, one of the most infamous and, let's be honest, most bizarre death scenes in the history of daytime television.
You have to talk about it. Mary and her unborn baby were tragically killed when the giant neon C from the Capwell Hotel sign
Just fell on her.
fell on her during a heated argument with Mason on the roof of the building.
I mean, when you say it out loud, it sounds utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like something from a parody.
It does. But it happened on screen, played completely straight.
Mm.
And it has become this legendary example of Santa Barbara's willingness to embrace the outrageous, its offbeat, sometimes darkly comedic style.
You almost have to laugh at the sheer audacity of it, even acknowledging the immense tragedy for the characters.
Exactly. And it absolutely devastated Mason. He plunged into a deep depression, struggled profoundly with alcoholism after losing Mary and their child in such a shocking way.
And didn't he develop a split personality later?
His grief and trauma were so severe that, yes, after being caught in an explosion later, he developed a split personality, manifesting as the cheerful, childlike Sonny Sprocket.
Sonny Sprocket.
Oh, wow.
Another example of the show taking a psychological concept and just pushing it to dramatic extremes.
And his relationship with Julia Wainwright, that was a big one too, right? On again, off again. A long-running, complicated dance. They were intellectual sparring partners who developed this deep connection. They married, divorced because of Mason's drinking, and an affair he had with Sasha Schmidt.
Sasha Schmidt. Oh.
Only to be drawn back together again and again. Their chemistry and dynamic were a huge fan favorite.
Even after the divorce, they worked together on Sasha's murder.
They did. Despite their divorce, they found themselves working together in a dramatic storyline to solve Sasha Schmidt's murder. And in a classic soap twist, it was revealed Sasha was actually accidentally killed by Ethan Asher's unstable wife, Laura Asher.
Laura was aiming for Ethan.
Yep. Aiming for Ethan during a confrontation, but hit Sasha instead. Tragic accident, huge consequences.
Mason later got involved with Cassie Benedict, the one thought dead.
Yeah, Cassie from the Four Orphans storyline. Their relationship was complicated by her own issues and her past connections. They even got engaged.
But it didn't work out.
No. Mason was shot by Craig Hunt, another of the orphans, which led to him running away. And their wedding was ultimately stopped by Warren Lockridge, who had his own long and complicated history with Cassie. Just messy.
But ultimately, Macy and Julia found their way back to each other.
They did, reconciling and remarrying. They moved into the haunted Ballymore mansion.
Of course they did. A haunted mansion.
Because, soap opera. They longed for another child after their daughter Samantha became seriously ill, which prompted them to consider adopting.
And the ending.
In the very final episode, after taking in a pregnant teenager named Greasy who wanted them to adopt her baby, Julia delivered the wonderful news that she was also pregnant with Mason's child.
Okay. A hopeful ending for them.
A hopeful, albeit busy, note to end their tumultuous journey on.
Another absolutely key character, but one notable for the sheer number of times the role was recast, was Kelly Capwell, Cece, and Sophia's daughter.
Kelly. Yeah, the recasting was significant. 4 different actresses during the show's run, including the incredibly well-known Robin Wright, who played the role early on before her film career took off.
Right, the Princess Bride.
Exactly. And later by Carrington Garland and Eileen Davidson. Each actor's brought something different, but the frequent changes. Well, it made it a character viewers constantly had to readjust to.
And Kelly had an incredibly complex and often tragic romantic life herself.
Oh, definitely. Her early love story with Joe Perkins was a significant focus at the show's start. Then she was institutionalized in a rather dark storyline.
Institutionalized?
Yeah. Had to be rescued by Pearl Bradford and Jeffrey Conrad, which introduced those 2 key characters into her orbit.
And she fell for Jeffrey Conrad.
Deeply. Only to discover a shocking family secret. He was the son of her father's first wife, Pamela, making him Mason's half-brother.
And her stepbrother.
Right. Despite this, they married. But their happiness was short-lived. She suffered a miscarriage. Jeffrey became distant, and in a bizarre twist, she was even poisoned by Pamela, Jeffrey's mother, who had returned seeking revenge.
Poisoned by her mother-in-law, who was also sort of her stepmother? Good grief.
It gets complicated. Her relationship with Rick Castillo, Cruz's brother, ended when they discovered they were unexpectedly half-siblings through a character named Harland Richards.
Another sibling twist.
Yep. Then came the particularly twisted saga involving twin brothers Robert Barr and Quinn Armitage, both played brilliantly by the same actor, Roscoe Bourne.
Twins, played by the same actor. Love that trope.
Classic. She married Quinn, who was pretending to be his presumably deceased twin brother Robert.
Oh no, that sounds bad.
It led to more tragedy. She suffered a fall down the stairs during a confrontation that left her confined to a wheelchair, was poisoned by Quinn's jealous lover Flame Beaufort, and suffered yet another miscarriage.
Good heavens, the poor woman went through everything. Did she ever find happiness?
Thankfully, yes. It wasn't until the series finale, after enduring all that trauma and loss, that Kelly finally found some measure of lasting happiness, finding love with a character named Connor McCabe. It was a nice note to end her long, difficult story on.
Okay, and then there's Gina Blake DeMott, a key schemer.
A key schemer and perpetual source of drama throughout much of the show's run. Thanks in large part to actresses like Robin Mattson, who brought immense energy and comedic timing to the role.
She arrived pretending Brandon was her son.
Yep, which immediately placed her at the center of the Capwell family conflict and led to that intense custody battle with Santana. And CC initially sided with Gina, remember? Fueling the fire.
Right. Who else was she involved with?
Numerous characters, including Keith Timmons, the often witty but undeniably antagonistic district attorney. He was his own source of trouble for the Capwells. Gina even suffered temporary blindness in a dramatic storyline and had a relationship with Dr. Scott Clark during that time.
She married a lot.
Multiple times, yeah. Always looking for security or advantage, it seemed, including her marriages to both Cece and, later, Lionel Lockridge.
She married Cece and Lionel Lockridge, Capwell and Lockridge.
Briefly uniting the rival families in a truly bizarre way. Her mother, Phyllis Blake, even arrived at one point, adding another layer of trouble with her gambling problems and schemes.
It runs in the family.
Seems like it. And her brother, Mac Blake, surprisingly showed up later in this series. He actually acted as a genuinely good influence on Brandon, despite Gina's initial suspicions, and became involved in a complex storyline connected to an affair involving Ethan and Laura Asher. Gina was just a character you loved to hate, always stirring the pot.
And we certainly can't forget Santana Andrade, Brandon's biological mother.
Santana. Her story was defined by her struggle with addiction, her desperate fight to regain custody of her son from Gina and the Capwells, and her own on-again, off-again relationships.
She was with Cruz Castillo early on.
Yeah, a significant relationship early in the series, which added tension to his eventual pairing with Eden. She left town and returned multiple times, her life a constant battle against her demons, and for her place in her son's life.
Did she have other relationships?
Later in the series, she returned again and had a relationship with Rafael Castillo, Cruz's brother, adding another layer to that complicated family tree.
These characters' lives were just incredibly full of intense, interconnected drama, secrets, and profound personal struggles.
Absolutely packed. And as you noted, often venturing into some pretty dark territory. Which brings us to the secrets, the crimes, and the rather notable body count that accumulated in Santa Barbara over the years.
Yeah, the show wasn't afraid to go dark.
Not at all. They delved into mysteries, psychological thrillers, and characters with truly villainous intentions.
Let's talk about the 4 orphans. That sounds intriguing.
One of the more intricate and long-running dark plot lines involved the 4 orphans, a group consisting of Ethan Asher, Stephen Slade, Craig Hunt, and Derek Griffin.
What bound them together?
A shared trauma. They were scarred by what they believed was the death of their friend Cassie Benedict in a cave-in years before. They made this dark pact, swearing revenge on those they held responsible.
Which was?
Primarily seemed to be the Capwells.
And Cassie Benedict.
Yeah.
She wasn't actually dead.
Nope. Perfect example of how the show would bring back old plot points with surprising twists. She was revealed to be alive years later.
Wow.
She became an honorary member of the Capwell family for a time due to her connections, only for the show to drop another bomb. She was revealed to be Minx Lockridge's illegitimate daughter.
Minx's daughter, making her a Lockridge.
Exactly, part of the rival family. Her life was incredibly complicated by relationships with all the orphans and others, and she struggled significantly with her mental health. Eventually, she was committed by her own mother, Minx, in a storyline that caused quite a stir.
Ethan Asher, one of the orphans, he became the DA.
Yes, introduced as the new district attorney, seeking his own form of justice or revenge, he came to town with his unstable wife, Laura.
Unstable how?
Well, Laura was having an affair with Michael Donnelly, a friend of the Capwells. That put a strain on her marriage to Ethan and prompted him to seek comfort elsewhere, leading to his brief affair with Gina Blake. Laura's instability escalated dramatically. She even hit Ethan with a car at one point.
Hit him with a car?
Yep. And Ethan's obsession with uncovering the truth about Cassie's supposed death led to his own legal troubles and incarceration.
And Laura killed Sasha Schmidt accidentally.
Right. In a moment of highly charged, chaotic drama, Laura, in her unstable state, confronted Ethan with a gun. While aiming for Ethan, she accidentally shot and killed Sasha Schmidt instead. That was the murder Mason and Julia ended up working to solve, unknowingly connected to the whole Four Orphans saga.
Speaking of disturbing characters and dark storylines,
Right.
Dr. Zach Kelton, the video rapist.
Initially presented as a respected member of the community, he was revealed to be the masked perpetrator known as the video rapist, a truly shocking reveal.
He was responsible for Eden's grape.
Yes, as we mentioned. And tragically, also for the grape and subsequent murder of Andrea Bedford. It was a storyline that explored the impact of sexual violence and the search for justice, albeit through that highly melodramatic lens.
Dash Nichols, another DA, was also accused of grape.
By Julia Wainwright, yes. That led to a tense courtroom drama that forced him to confront the death of a former patient. Julia, at one point, even took matters into her own hands and kidnapped him, trying to force a confession or understanding.
Did anything come of that?
He later had a realization about his past actions and behavior, apparently, and ended up helping another woman escape a similar situation. So, a complex arc. These storylines involving sexual assault were difficult, but did address serious issues within the heightened reality of the show.
Then there was Ken Mathis, the charming professor who married Sophia.
Yeah, the gymnastics professor. Seemingly charming, managed to woo and marry Sophia Wayne, but he was secretly poisoning her for her money. A slow, insidious plot.
And he was having an affair.
With Andy Klein, a younger woman, when the truth about his poisoning scheme was revealed, Andy, fearing implication or punishment, ended up killing him to prevent him from exposing her or sending her to prison.
Andy Klein again. She pops up a lot.
She does. A recurring troublemaker.
Elena Nicholas, Cece, and Pamela's secret daughter. The vengeful one.
A truly memorable, if short-lived, villainess. Arrived in Santa Barbara under an alias, filled with this consuming desire for revenge against the Capwells.
Her schemes were elaborate.
And cruel. She kidnapped Eden, leaving her for dead in a cave. She meticulously planned to frame Cruz Castillo for her own murder.
Which she committed herself.
Right.
As the final act of her twisted revenge plot. She was also connected to Kirk Cranston, Eden's disturbed ex-husband, which further complicated things.
And Kirk Cranston himself, what was his deal?
Eden's ex-husband, deeply involved in Elena's actions and plans. He kidnapped Cruz and Eden's daughter Adriana during that Paris storyline. Later, he returned and became involved in drug trafficking.
How did his story end? His final confrontation with Cruz ended with him going overboard during a struggle, presumably to his death. Though, you know, in soap operas.
You can never be entirely sure.
Right. We absolutely must revisit the tragic and bizarre story of Mary Duval McCormick's accidental death by the falling Capwell sign.
The sea.
The sea. While already mentioned with Mason, it bears repeating because it is such a defining, wild moment. It perfectly encapsulates the show's unique, sometimes absurd flair for the dramatic, often cited as the prime example when discussing Santa Barbara.
Amy Perkins Wallace, from one of those initial families. She had a tough time, too.
A confusing and rather traumatic storyline involving her baby's paternity due to unsolicited artificial insemination. After a long fight, she got her baby back and found love marrying Brick Wallace.
But a tragic end.
Tragically, yes. She was accidentally killed in a fire, and this fire was started by a projectile thrown by Haley Benson during an unrelated conflict. Just wrong place, wrong time.
And Brick Wallace, her husband.
Had his own difficult journey. Falsely accused of grape early in the show's run, which was a major storyline. He later joined the police academy, following in Cruz's footsteps, and even helped Cruz escape from prison at one point.
Did he stay in town?
No, he eventually left town with another character, Jane Wilson, taking his adoptive baby Johnny with them, seeking a quieter life away from Santa Barbara's constant drama, I suppose.
Keith Timmons, the antagonistic DA with the Gina connection, he had a personal reason for disliking Cruz.
He did. A personal vendetta against Cruz Castillo that fueled some of his actions. This animosity stemmed from the tragedy of his sister Katie.
What happened to her?
She died by suicide because Cruz did not reciprocate her feelings and didn't want a relationship with her. It was a dark backstory that explained his frequent harassment of Cruz.
Later in the series, they introduced a new core family, the Walkers.
Yeah, to help anchor the show after some major cast departures, the Walker family. Siblings Jody, Reese, Sawyer, and BJ.
Jody and Reese were cops.
Both police officers, often working alongside or at odds with Cruz. Reese was deeply suspicious and jealous of Jody's close friendship with Cruz, which caused tension.
And then a big secret came out.
Oh, yeah. The drama intensified when Jody revealed a shocking secret. BJ was actually Cruz's daughter, born from a previous encounter.
Cruz's daughter. Wow.
Put immense strain on Jody and Reese's marriage. Jody sought comfort with Micah DeAngelis. Reese had an affair with Andy Klein.
Andy Klein again.
Although Jody and Reese eventually managed to reunite.
Sawyer Walker, the brother, what was his story?
Passionate about boxing. Had relationships with Lily Blake, who was Gina's niece, and later Aurora DeAngelis. He became entangled in a dark plot when he was suspected of killing Frank Goodman.
Who was Frank Goodman?
He was the man responsible for raping BJ. The trauma surrounding BJ being raped by Frank Goodman was a very difficult storyline for the Walker family and the show, exploring the aftermath and the pursuit of justice.
And Sawyer was suspected.
Yeah. He ended up running away with Aurora while still under suspicion. As you can see from this litany of events, Santa Barbara did not shy away from dark or controversial themes.
Not at all. Murder mysteries, psychological issues, violent crimes. They tackled it all.
Often weaving them into the melodramatic fabric of the Capwell and Lockridge world, sometimes twisting them in truly unique, sometimes even outrageous ways that left viewers talking.
Absolutely. The intensity of the plot lines was matched by a fascinating story behind the show itself. It wasn't just the drama on screen, was it?
No, the production of Santa Barbara had its own unique challenges and characteristics that contributed to its legacy.
It was created by the husband and wife writing team, Bridget and Jerome Dobson.
That's right. And they definitely had a distinct vision for the show's tone and style, aiming for something perhaps wittier and faster paced than traditional soaps.
But there was turnover. Producers, writers.
Significant turnover throughout the years, yeah. The Dobsons themselves held both titles at various points, but there were periods where other producers and writers took the helm, leading to shifts in direction.
And there was significant drama behind the scenes, like real-life drama.
Oh yeah, it spilled into the news. At one point, the Dobsons were literally locked out of the NBC studios.
Locked out. Why?
After attempting to fire a head writer against the network's wishes, they sued NBC over the situation and eventually returned to their roles later in the show's run. But it highlighted the turbulent relationship between the creators and the network and the sometimes chaotic nature of the production.
Despite facing initial rating struggles and some behind-the-scenes issues, the show actually received significant critical acclaim.
It did. Libby Slate, in an article for the LA Times, praised the show's writing and its willingness to take narrative chances, break away from traditional soap formulas. She even highlighted their innovative approach, noting how they incorporated roles for deaf performers.
That was rare for the time.
Remarkably rare for television back then, day or night.
This willingness to take chances definitely manifested in the show's famous and often celebrated comedic style and offbeat writing.
We keep coming back to it, but the death by giant neon sea is the ultimate example. A moment so bizarre it's been referenced and parodied in other shows.
And there were other moments that were just purely wonderfully strange.
Totally. Like when Greg Hughes, Cece's long-lost son, had a dream sequence where he imagined Mason and Julia were aliens visiting Earth.
Aliens.
Yeah, and he was guiding them through a world that was literally the Capwell Zone, a nod to the Twilight Zone. Moments like that prevented the show from ever becoming just generic melodrama. It always had this unique, quirky edge.
Exactly. It kept you on your toes. Another defining characteristic of the show, and sometimes a point of contention for fans, was its heavy reliance on recasting characters.
Oh, definitely. By the time the series ended, almost every major original character had been played by multiple actors.
Like Kelly, Cece, Santana.
Had the most recasts, yeah. 4 different actors portraying each role over the years. While some recasts were incredibly successful and became iconic, Jed Allen as Cece, Robin Mattson as Gina.
Yeah, they were great.
For fans who had grown attached to a specific actor, it could be genuinely upsetting and jarring to see a beloved character suddenly look and sound different.
There were also notable departures of popular actors who chose to leave, like Robin Wright.
Robin Wright left in '88 to pursue her film career, yeah. Famously starred in The Princess Bride. Other prominent actors like Lane Davies, who played Mason, and Marcy Walker, who played Eden, also departed in the early 90s.
So those departures necessitated writing out characters or recasting.
Exactly. And it also led to the introduction of entirely new characters and families, like the Walker family, featuring established soap stars like Kim Zimmer and Jack Wagner to fill the void and create new dynamic.
Despite the production drama, the cast changes, and the often outlandish plot lines, Santa Barbara was a critical success and an award winner.
multiple Daytime Emmy Awards, including an impressive 3 consecutive wins for Outstanding Drama Series from 1988 to 1990.
Wow, 3 in a row.
Yeah. They also won Emmys for their writing team, directing team, and numerous technical categories like music direction and hairstyling. Many actors from the show also took home Emmys for their performances. And Martinez Cruz, Marcy Walker, Eden, Justin Dalis, Keith Timmons, Henry Darrow, Rafael Castillo, Nancy Lee Gran, Julia Wainwright, and young Justin Gok, Brandon.
They won Writers Guild of America awards, too.
Yep. Reinforcing that the writing, even with its offbeat elements, was recognized for its quality and innovation within the genre.
And the music was a truly key part of the show's unique style.
Absolutely. Composers like Joe Harnell and Dominic Messenger created a distinct, often more contemporary musical landscape than was typical for soaps at the time. They incorporated contemporary music and created specific, memorable love themes for different characters and couples.
That adds such an emotional layer.
It really did. It helped define key relationships musically. Fans absolutely adored these character themes.
Like for specific couples.
Oh, yeah. There was a distinct theme for Joe Perkins and Kelly Capwell early on. Later, specific songs became strongly associated with couples like Cruz and Eden All My Life, Nothing Can Take Me Away From You, A Little Bit of Heaven.
Yeah.
Michael and Julia had Two Worlds Apart. Mason and Julia had Never Thought That I Could Love. There was even a popular theme for that complex triangle involving Robert Barr, Kelly, and Craig Hunt called Welcome to the Edge.
So the music wasn't just background noise.
No, it was woven into the narrative and character identities.
But perhaps one of the most surprising and impactful aspects of Santa Barbara's legacy is its absolutely incredible international success.
This is fascinating, yeah. Something that wasn't necessarily anticipated during its sometimes troubled run in the U.S.
It was huge globally. Like where?
In France, for example, it wasn't aired in the afternoon, like in the U.S. It aired in prime time, 7:00 p.m., and consistently attracted millions of viewers.
Prime time. Wow.
It was so popular that when Cruz and Eden's search for their daughter took them to Paris, the show actually filmed scenes on location there to cater to its massive French fan base. That was unprecedented.
In Russia. I read something about Russia.
Perhaps even more remarkably, yeah. In Russia, Santa Barbara holds a significant place in cultural history. It was the very first American program to air after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
The first one.
The first one. Now, the network didn't air all the episodes from the beginning. They started partway through the run, but it became this cultural phenomenon. It introduced a whole new audience to American television and the world of soap opera drama right as the country was undergoing massive change.
That's incredible. And it aired lots of other places, too.
Australia, Brazil, Germany, where it was titled California Clan, Italy, Spain, the UK, and many, many other countries listed in the sources. This kind of widespread international reach is a massive, often overlooked part of why this show is remembered and discussed today.
It transcended its American daytime slot to become a global phenomenon.
Proving its unique blend of melodrama and distinct style had universal appeal. It really does highlight that despite its sometimes chaotic production and outrageous plot points, there was something fundamentally engaging and unique about Santa Barbara that resonated with audiences across different cultures and languages.
And then, after nearly a decade of dramatic highs and lows, it all came to an end with the series finale airing on January 15th, 1993.
By the time the final episode rolled around, it's notable that the only original actor who had been in the pilot episode and stayed through the entire run—
Only one.
Only one. Margarita Cordova, who played the incredibly long-suffering and loyal Capwell housekeeper Rosa Andrade.
Rosa.
However, many of the core characters from the original concept were still central figures in the final storylines. Cece, Sophia, Kelly, Mason, Ted, Warren Lockridge, Lionel, Gina, Minx Lockridge, they were still around.
And the finale episode worked to wrap up some key ongoing storylines, give closure.
Yeah, provide closure for the remaining central characters. Cece and Sophia, after decades of on-again, off-again drama, were moving towards reconciliation, finally putting their complicated past behind them.
And Kelly Capwell, after everything.
Kelly, after all her heartache and tragic relationships, finally found lasting happiness, falling in love with Connor McCabe.
The very final major dramatic scene involved a wedding.
The wedding of Warren Lockridge and B.J. Walker, and in classic Santa Barbara fashion, there had to be one last moment of peril.
Oh no, what happened?
The unbalanced Andy Klein,
Her again.
who had her own history of instability and violence, aimed a rifle at the crowd during the ceremony.
At the wedding.
Yep. But Connor McCabe, Kelly's new love, heroically intervened, disarmed her, and carried her away from the wedding, neatly tying up his introduction and solidifying his place as Kelly's rescuer and partner.
Okay, so disaster averted.
Phew. After that burst of final drama, the show included a rather nice, heartwarming roll call montage of the entire cast and crew, acknowledging the people who had worked on the show.
That's a nice touch.
But the very final shot of the series was unique and memorable for a soap opera.
What was it?
Executive producer Paul Rausch appeared directly in front of the camera, paused, deliberately smashed a cigar under his shoe, and simply walked away.
Smash a cigar under his shoe. That's a statement.
A bold, almost defiant mic drop moment to end the series on, leaving a lasting, slightly enigmatic impression.
Wow, what a journey through the world of Santa Barbara. From the founding murder mystery and intense family rivalries to characters developing split personalities, escaping murderers, and yes, that unforgettable death by giant falling letter.
It really did pack it all in. It's truly fascinating how this series, with all its wild twists and turns, its blend of intense melodrama and unexpected humor, and its willingness to push traditional boundaries, managed to captivate audiences not just in the United States, but around the world.
It fully embraced the inherent camp and the profound drama of the soap opera genre in a way that felt distinctively its own.
Absolutely. So, as you reflect on this deep dive, what stands out most to you about Santa Barbara? Was it the sheer number of times characters were recast? The genuinely outrageous plot lines that might have made you chuckle even as they unfolded?
Or maybe the surprising fact that it was the very first American soap opera aired in post-Soviet Russia, marking a unique cultural moment. There is genuinely so much here to think about.
This deep dive certainly raises an interesting question to ponder. Given Santa Barbara's global success and its reputation for pushing narrative boundaries, injecting humor, and embracing a unique tone, why haven't more American soap operas since attempted to capture that level of unique, sometimes wonderfully campy storytelling and deliberately pursue that kind of international relevance?
That's a great question. What lessons could be learned from its distinct approach?
A truly thought-provoking question.
We sincerely hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the unforgettable world of Santa Barbara.
If you found this deep dive interesting and want more explorations like this, please be sure to like this episode.
Subscribing to the channel is the best way to make sure you don't miss our future deep dives into fascinating topics.
And we would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment below with what you thought about Santa Barbara or any suggestions you have for future topics you'd like us to unpack.
We love hearing from you. Thanks so much for joining us.